Okay, Shavua Tov, Boker Tov, good morning. Rabotai, we are continuing in Masechet Sanhedrin, and we are holding on the Kuf Amud Bet, 100B2 in the Art Scroll. In the topic that we left off on last week, which was the topic of Ben Sira. So we spoke about who Ben Sira was. We said he had a book that, was written in the style of the Bible, of Tanakh. And some wanted to call it a Sefer Chitzonim, an outside book. What does this mean? Outside of the religion, or does it mean outside of the Bible? Um, and there was said that there was some objectionable material in the book of Ben Sira, and that's why the Chacham didn't want to put it into the Tanakh. So we were trying to figure out last week what was the objectionable material. So we brought down a few different sentences that were in the book of Ben Sira, and we said most of them were Divrei Chazal. They were either we had actual psukim like them, or we had Divrei Chazal. We had words of our rabbis that taught these same lessons that were written in Ben Sira. So today we start off at 100B2, and it's about 8 lines up from the start of the wide lines in the Hebrew. And on 100B2 on the English side, you're on the bottom right paragraph. The bottom right paragraph. Elu mishum dichtiv. You know what's wrong with it? Because it's written in the book of Ben Siram, Zaldekan Kurteman, that a person with a thin beard is exceedingly wise. So Ben Sira says, person who has a thin beard is a very wise person. Avdekan Sachsan, but a thick bearded man is a fool. Okay, now I don't know what proof he has to this, but that's what he says. Dinfach b'chase lo tzahem. If a person says he's thirsty and then he takes a mug of beer and he's blowing off the froth, the fizz on the top, then you should know he's not thirsty. Okay, that makes sense. We've heard that before. Someone says, I'm hungry, and he's given bread, and he says, what shall I eat my bread with? Lahma sabmine. Take the bread away from him. If he was very hungry, he didn't care about which relish or condiment he would have. He wants to eat because he's hungry. Then he said, Man itle ma'abrata b'tikne kuli alma lo yachlele. Person has a part in his beard, meaning his beard is split in the middle. And they want to explain, Rashi wants to explain because he's constantly stroking his beard because he's thinking of ideas. He's thinking of plans. So he's a very smart man. So no one can defeat him. So what's the issue with this? So we take a look at note 33. He says as follows. Because they teach a kind of determinism. Take the last passage as an example. No matter what one does, he'll not be able to overcome the man with the parted beard. In truth, all it is in Hashem's hands. And the proper thing to do is to pray to God for protection from him or any other man. Okay, so he has a lot of nonsense in here. He says, you have a thin beard, you're wise. Who said that? Why can't a person with a thick beard be wise? Or why can't it be the other way around? There's no such thing as a person with a thick beard. That makes him a fool, and that makes him... No. So this determinism and saying that no one could win over a guy with a part in his beard, again, it's not true. We pray and we can make differences. Okay, so that's some of the objectionable material. Now, if you would put this in as a book of Tanakh, right, this would be a problem because not everything here is true. And it might be going against the religion. Therefore, the book was not included. Amar Rav Yosef, but the good stuff that are in there, we expound upon it. In fact, the Ritva here learns that the issue of reading Ben Sira is if you're studying it as part of Tanakh, as part of divine wisdom, part of the biblical canon of texts. But if you're just reading it to become familiar with it, to learn from it, because much of it is useful. Yeah, there is some nonsense in there, right? That's the Ritva. Meiri we saw said you shouldn't read it, but if you want to read it to know what not to say and what not to tell people and tell people to be careful of, then you would be allowed to. Um, just as we take a moment, there's a lot of books out there in the world that are written by non-religious people or written by goyim or stuff like that that may have in it a lot of good information. Okay, it has a lot of good stuff in there. Now, can one read it or not? Okay, so can one read a Musar Sefer, for example, that was written by a goy, or life lessons written by a goy? I know recently by the woman they had a book. I think it was called "Surrendered Wife" or "Empowered Wife," written by a Christian woman. A lot of Jewish people, a lot of Rebbitzins, a lot of rabbis took to that book and learning lessons from them. You have books such as "How to Win Friends and Influence People" by Dale Carnegie. That's a famous text used by a lot of religious people. Steve Colby has a book that people read, like a Musar Sefer. Recently, Professor Jordan Peterson has some books and lessons that are very good. So, can a religious Jew listen to these things? Or we give an example of Tony Robbins, right? People have heard of Tony Robbins, a big motivator and influencer who has a lot of life lessons as well. Can a religious Jew listen to them? So, Behemet, this seems to be the answer over here, is that there's probably some nonsense in there, and there's probably some objectionable material in there. And at the same time, there's probably a lot of good information in there. And when we read these things or listen to these, we have to understand that it's not coming from a divine wisdom. It's not coming from a religious perspective. It's not coming as the ultimate word. There are some good things in there, and you can learn from it. And some people would say, I don't want to get involved with this nonsense mixed with good stuff. It's not for me. Or some people are too weak and they don't know they don't have a good grasp of Judaism and what is okay and what's not okay. And when they hear these other things, they get confused and they might be living their life wrong because of that. So there are reasons to be careful, but it's definitely not usher. It's not they're not teaching you to apikarsis and stuff like that. They're trying to teach you musar the way they understand and ethics of the goyim. Not saying that their ethics are good. I'm not saying that, but I'm sure there are some parts that are. So that's the idea over here. You can imply from the Ritva, Meiri, and others of how to look at these type of life lessons and books and stuff like that. Okay, now what are some of the good stuff that are found in the book of Ben Sirah? Yosef gives a couple of examples over here. Isha tova, matana tova, a good wife is a precious gift. Okay, having a good wife, the Ben Sirah says, is a gift. Looks like it's not. It's a precious gift. You have to be very lucky to get this precious gift. Behek yere Elohim tinaten. She is given into the embrace of a God-fearing man. Now, the way that Maharasha explains this verse in Ben Sirah is that a wife is a precious gift and usually is designated by heaven 40 days before the conception. However, if a religious man prays, right, and a person is a God-fearing man and he davens, says the Marashah, she's given into the embrace of a God-fearing man. Meaning, if she was supposed to be for Plony, for this guy, and the other guy who really wants her davens, and for the right reasons, then he can switch it up. I mean, I'll just mention really quick about Rachel and Leah, right? So everybody was saying Rachel's for Yaakov, Leah's Esav. So the Midrashim tell us that Leah asked, "What's Esav? Who's Esav?" They said, he's a murderer, he's a hunter, he's a liar, cheater, this and all that. And then she said, "What about Yaakov that my sister's going to marry? He's a Sadiq, he's a great guy, he's a nice guy, he's amazing." And then she started to cry. So the question that Ben Ish Hai asks is why she only started to cry after they mentioned Yaakov. Why didn't they cry? Why didn't she cry the minute that she heard how bad Esab was? So the Ben Ish Hai answers is that Leah said, "I'm going to be the wife. I can change him around," you know, and but then she heard that Esav has a brother like Yaakov, and they're close to each other. They grew up together, and still Esav turned out to be Esav, and was not influenced by Yaakov. She said, "No matter how good of a wife I am, I'm never going to be able to change Esav." Therefore, she started to cry. She didn't want to marry Esav. She would rather marry Yaakov. But that's an idea from over here that a person can pray for a better shidduch, like Leah prayed for a better shidduch. Isha ra'am sarat levala. Bad wife is leprosy to her husband. Martikanta, you got to shen mebeto v'yitraper misarato. Should expel her from her house, and then he'll be cured of his leprosy. I just mentioned that you know the statistics show that a person who's married and divorces, much more likelihood that his second marriage gets divorced as well. So it's not usually an answer just to divorce. The person really has to look at themselves and see what they're doing wrong, and how they're doing, um, and take it from there. Okay. Isha yafa ashrei bala, says Ben Sira, a beautiful wife is fortunate to her husband. Mispari amav kiflayim. His days are considered double. Right? A man who has a beautiful wife, he's living a double life. Um, right? He's not actually double, says Rashi, but rather he derives great pleasure from her, so it's like he lived twice. The Marsha explains, she prevents him from sinning, and hence the number of days double, that he will live a full life, and Olam Haba as well, because he's not going to get karet, he's not going to die early, and he's going to get Olam Haba. So a beautiful wife protects him from sins, the sexual sins. Okay. Halem einecha me'eshet ein. Penti lachen b'mtsudata. Conceal your eyes from a woman of charm, lest you be caught in her trap. Who is this woman of charm? So the Maharasha, read note 38 with me, Rabotai. Though she may not be beautiful, so the woman is ugly. A married woman is endowed with charm by the evil inclination. The Yesahara makes married woman appear more attractive. One who does not avoid her may thus be ensnared in the evil inclinations trap, right? Mayim Genuvim, right? The stolen waters are much more sweet. So, Yesahara makes it that a married woman is um, more attractive. Somehow, it's the charm he puts on married woman. So the Ben Sira tells us, do not turn to her husband to share wine and strong drink with him. Don't spend time with him, because you're going to spend time with the husband. You're going to end up being alone with her, and keep it to Arisha Yofia Rabbim Ushchatu. For many have been destroyed by the appearance of a beautiful woman. We mentioned empires fell, governments fell, people fell, families destroyed. A lot of craziness in the world happened due to the beauty of a woman. Va'atzumim kol arugeya, and numerous are her victims. They will go to Gehenna. And be very careful. Rabim hayum pitzei rochel. Many are the blows sustained by peddlers. Who are these peddlers? So Rashi tells us this is the peddlers, the people who come around with ladies' adornments, stuff that they use for ladies, whether it be undergarments or perfumes, other things like that. They go around selling them. So they come into the houses to sell it to the woman. The husband comes home after a long day of work, and he finds in the house the peddler with his wife. Suspecting what happened, the husband starts to beat the peddler. So the peddler gets a lot of beating up for selling such things to the woman. Margilim ledvar erva kenitzotz ma'ir gahelet. Those who habituate others to immorality are like a spark that ignites a coal. Basically, that if you make somebody involved with gilu arayot, with immorality, it takes over the person. It burns him. It burns everybody around him. It's a sin that is very easy to catch on. Kichluv male'of came but to him a coop is full of birds, so are their houses full of deceit. I mean, just as you know that it's a bird coop, tell to people who do immorality and adultery, everybody will know what they were doing because it just spreads out. Prevent the public. Oh, wait, before we continue, the Rayad Ramah has a different understanding of his whole sugya over here right now, and he says that it all starts with the peddler. The peddler comes and sells these things, and the woman then dresses up in these things, and now she's more attractive, and more people are looking at her, and it ends up being adultery all because of these things. The adornments they sell transform what is repulsive. So what should be considered adultery and disgusting as repulsive as a coop full of birds towards the end of note 45, it turns it into something attractive and deceive people into straying after it, right? So adultery, which should be disgusting between the peddlers and everything else, turns it into like Hollywood, right? They turn everything into looking like really, really nice and really good and really fun and really enjoyable. That people want to do it, but it's a house full of deceit and it's disgusting. And you got to be careful about this. So someone on the Shir on Shabbat said, tell this to the woman. Why? I said, because the woman, they all get dressed up when they go outside. No one gets dressed up for their husband. They get dressed up for people. So I said to him, why do you think that is? He said, oh, probably because the husband will never comment anyway how nice she looks. So she doesn't bother. The people outside would say something. So therefore she does it. So I say you asked, you answered. So now do something about it. Okay, now let's continue. Prevent the public from coming into your house. Do not bring everyone into your house. Again, you have a lock on your door. You're in the balabait. We saw this last week. You're in charge of what comes in, okay, and what comes out. But definitely, what comes in, you're in charge of. You lock the door. That doesn't belong in here. Not everybody belongs in your house. If your house is everyone can walk in, then you don't have a house. You have a public thoroughfare. You have a Grand Central Station. Okay. Many should be your friends, right? Everyone, you should ask about how you're doing this and that. But only share your secret into 1 in 1,000. From the one who lies in your embrace, meaning the person that you lay down with, meaning your wife, and she's in your hug and your embracement, you should also be careful not to share your secrets with her. Okay? Number one, not everybody's your friend, and not everybody has good intentions. And there's something called ayin hara. So you tell people a secret, and they're gonna have ayin hara on it, and they're going to be what's it called jealous and stuff like that. It's not good. So too, not everything you have you share with your wife, because sometimes when something is still in the we also know that there's a simam bracha and something that's kept quiet. Now, if your wife is a chatterbox and she tells people, or she tells her mother, and her mother then tells everybody, or she tells her sister, and then the sister tells everybody, or tells her friend, and her friend tells everybody, then you have to be wise of what you can share and what you can't share. I remember Shimshon fell because of his wife said, you don't love me, you don't tell me. He told all the secrets, and she gave it away to the Plishtim, to the Philistines, and he went down. So Ben Sirach gives you practical advice. He says, even to your wife, don't share every secret. You got to know what to share and what not to share. Okay, yeah, it's what it is. Fine. Then Ben Sirach says, and we continue. Al tetzar tzarap mahar. Do not be distressed by tomorrow's troubles. You don't know what will happen today. Right? A lot of times we're worried about what will be tomorrow. We don't understand what will happen today. And even more so, you don't even know if you'll be alive tomorrow. it'll turn out. So you're worrying about a world that's not his. So for me, I've taken from this lesson over here of Ben Sira, also in Mishlei, I believe it's such a idea is broad, but I taken on this like you got to focus on what you have to do today. All right, if there's an issue that came up today, then try to figure it out, make it work today, and then tomorrow will be another journey that you'll have to work with. I'm not saying never think about tomorrow. I don't think Ben Sira is telling you not to think about tomorrow either. Because don't worry to that extent of worry about tomorrow when you have to get through today. Okay, no one knows what happened tomorrow. Today you have today. You have to deal with today, so you deal with it right now and do it the best you can. An example I'll give is that making a schedule at work. People have to show up to work and stuff like that. So sometimes, like in 2 weeks, I know I'm going to be short. Right, there's not going to be enough staff. So I used to get all worked up, and I said, whatever. We'll just figure it out. And what happens is most times, like the day or two before, someone will come and say, you know what, I'd rather work that day than this day, and like the other day I can spare them be off, and then they can work that day, and it works out most of the times. It works out. I'll say it always works out, but it works out most of the time. And there was no need to get all worried about what would happen in the future, but rather work through your issues and of the day rather than worrying about the future. That's what he's saying over here. Now, there is a pasuk in Mishlei. Okay, Mishlei 15:15. So the days of a poor person are bad, and a person with a happy heart is always feasting. Okay, so now Ben Shira adds to this pasuk. He says, "Kol yemei," not only kol yemei, based on omer af leilot, even night times. Okay, not just the days, daytime, but also nighttime. Explains Bishval Gagim Gago. The base of the roofs is his roof. He's living way down. Cannot build a higher roof. Okay, uvimrom harim karmo, and at the top of the mountain is his vineyard. So what's the problem? The rain from the higher roofs runs off on his roof. For a rainy night, their sleep is disturbed by the constant runoff beating down on the roofs from the roofs of the higher dwellings. Right? So people higher up, he's lower down, so all the rain falls on him. And he hears it the whole time. And I'll even add, the more rain, the more you're going to have to change your roof, right? It's going to get ruined faster. So even his nights are worrisome. And then, he has his vineyard on the top of the mountain. So it's not such a good place to plant. But he goes and he makes an expense. He gets topsoil, good soil, and he uses it and he puts it. And then the wind comes and throws all the soil that he put on top onto the vineyards and fields of his neighbors who are much more better off than him. So even his leilot, is also bad for him. Okay. Now, Siman Zira Rava, Mashashia Hanina, Tuvia, Yana Yafe, Yohanan, Merahim, Yehoshua Mekasir. They're all going to give now an explanation to this pasuk in Mishlei of Kol Yemei Ani Ra'im. That all the days of the poor person is bad. What's the allusion to? All the days of a pauper are bad. This is the people who learn Gemara. There's so many questions. There's so many that's hard. You have to crack your head on it and stuff like that. So it's like someone who's poor. But a person with who's the Tov Lev who has it good. They're the ones who learn Mishnah. It's simple, it's short, it's nice, it's easy. I would say the opposite. No. Mishnah is the poor person. Gemara, that's the rich person who has it good. Why? Why does it say the person who cuts and quarries stones will be bothered by them? But the one who cuts trees will be warmed by them. Why is this? Because the person who learns Mishnah. Mishnah is, first of all, not complete. It was made in such a way that you still need to have the Gemara to understand it. And you can never paskin halachot from the Mishnah. So a person who learns Mishnah, he's doing all this struggle, but he's not getting anywhere in the end. Whereas the Bali Talmud, they're having a struggle, they're cutting trees and stuff like that. But at the end, they have a clearer understanding of the topic, and that they learned it correctly to be able to give a psak, give a ruling on a certain matter. And they're able to learn one matter from the other. So that is much more exciting, and that's tov lev mishneh tamid. Okay, now man, kol yemei aniraim ze mi sheyesh lo isha ra'a. Someone who has a bad wife. Tov lev mishneh tamid ze sheyesh lo isha tova. If someone has a good wife, okay, then he has a good life, happy wife, happy life. I would just, sometimes you learn the Gemara, you kind of get, like, it's all depends on the wife. The wife is good, a good life. The wife is beautiful. You have double the life. And I would suggest people to learn the Sefer from Rabbi Arush, the Garden of Peace for men, especially the topic where he talks about when a woman gives you a hard time, right? The Torah does say Ezer Kenegdo, right? Help her opposite. And Chaim Shmulevitz and others who explain why is this and how is this. And it's not just simple, oh, she's bad, and my life is terrible. Yeah, your life is terrible because she's bad, but why is she bad? And what can you do about it? So, right. So just wanted to mention that as well. Rabbi Yanai Omer, Kol Yemei Ani Ra'im Ze Istanis. This is a poor person who everything is bad. This is an istanis. Astanis in Greek, which means someone who's very finicky, someone who's squeamish, someone who everything bothers him. He can never sit straight. Everything is always problematic. So his life is always bad because he can never enjoy anything. But a person who has a good heart, meaning that he is okay with everything that happens, he is always partying. This is a someone who has a lot of compassion. Right? He's a very compassionate person. This is a cruel person. He has a good life. What's going on here? So they explain that person who's very rahmanut, everything you tell him, he feels. And everything, he's very, everything gets to him right away. So he's always in pain because there's a lot of tragedies out there. And that's the right, cool person. He doesn't care about anything. So he is tov liv. He's having a mishneh tamid. So the question that was asked, so are you telling us to be cruel? No, not saying to be cruel. But rather, you have to know when to apply what. Yes, one of the things that the Jews are known as, the three traits of the Jews, one of them is being rahmanut, we're merciful. And it's true as yes, but not everything requires our mercy on it, right? If the civil war in Syria between the different Muslims, it shouldn't be. We should feel bad people are dying, but not to that extent that we can't live. And I once heard from somebody, they said, may both sides win, right? They're also Israel. They don't want to kill Jews, both sides. So what's it called? We shouldn't be bogged down because of that situation, right? Chesed is a very nice thing, but too much chesed, we spoke about in the past, is not good, right? If a brother and sister do a sexual sin, the Torah calls it chesed. Why is it chesed? Because there was too much chesed that led to this to happen, right? Too much mercifulness is also not good. The pasuk in Eicha that the merciful women cook their children. Too much mercy, and for example, they say that you feel bad that the child is falling. You're never going to let him learn to walk because you don't want him to keep getting hurt, right? But you can't do that. So here it says someone who's very, very merciful is always having a bad life because he's always feeling bad for everything. Now, it shouldn't be cruel, but you have to know how to be cruel. Meaning, for example, if a doctor would feel bad every time someone gets sick or is about to die, he won't be able to do his job, or she won't be able to do her job, right? They have to build up some sort of resistance to that emotion. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to do the job. So it's the same idea over here. I know he's a little bit here. Rabbi Yochanan kind of, says it straight up, but I think if you pay attention to it, it starts to make sense. Rabbi Shimon Levi Omar, Kol Yemei Ani Ra'im. What is this? Zeh Shedato Ketzara. So Mishatamim Zeh Shedato Rehava. Who is this guy who's having a bad all the time? Someone with a short fuse. Okay, anything he hears can really get him very upset, and anything he hears can get him to be angry. So therefore, he's always upset and always angry, and what's it called? He's always in having a bad life. But a person who's more tolerant, he's more forbearing, That's Tov Le Mishneh Tabin. And now Yeshua ben Levi asks, well, how can this be? How could it be that all the days of the poor person are bad? You have Shabbat Yom Tov. And on those days, we help even the poor person. We make sure they have seudah. We make sure they have food. We have all these other things. So why are they having a bad time on these days as well? On Shabbat Yom Tov. So Vehika Shabbatom Yom Tovim. Kiddush Shmuel, Amar Shmuel, Shinui Veset Tahilat Holim Me'ayim. A change of routine is the beginning of a stomach illness, right? The whole week the guy's not eating anything, and all of a sudden on Shabbat you give him all these fancy foods, his stomach is going to hurt. So even on Shabbat and Yom Tov, he's eating better. He's having Kol Yemei Ani Na'im. He's still having a bad time. So just to mention, you gotta, when you learn the Gemara, you can't just learn it and move on. You have to extrapolate, as the Ramban writes in his Ager Ramban to his son, right? You have to extrapolate something that you can take into life. So what do we see here? We see here from Shmuel how important it is to have a diet that is okay with your stomach. So we'll just start. All of us, Baruch Hashem, are getting older, and we've already realized that we can't eat as we ate when we were younger, right? And we can't eat when we want to eat, and we can't eat everything that we want to eat, but we have to eat what is appropriate for us and for our bodies, and what we can drink and what we can't drink, and how we drink and when we drink, and all this, because we have to take care of ourselves, and changing something is not that easy anymore. And so it's important to figure out. I'm not saying to have all your meals of the week like Shabbat. I'm not saying you have a Shabbat like a weekday, but a person should figure it out. Perhaps instead of having 5 different foods on Shabbat, maybe 1 or 2 more. We'll do it. And and you got to figure out what works for your body and your system. Okay, we don't want to be Kol Yemei Ani Na'im. We don't want to have always bad days when our stomachs are hurting. So let's figure it out. Tanu Abanan. And this is the last topic for today. Let's take a look at this. Tanu Abanan, Hakore Pasuk Shel Shir Hashirim. A person is reading a pasuk of Shir Hashirim, Ve'oseh Oto Kimin Zemer, and he makes it like a song. Okay, so that for Shir Hashirim the Gemara picks, probably because Shir Hashirim was one of the books that were also on the debate if it should be included into Tanakh. Right? We say now it's Kodesh Kodashim, but at the time it was debatable because the Shir Hashirim is written as a love song. So here comes a guy, he takes one of the psukim in the Kodesh Kodashim of Shir Hashirim, and he takes it as literal translation, and he makes a love song out of it. Okay? The person says psukim in a banquet in its unappropriate time. He recites verses containing the names of distinguished guests for the purpose of praising those guests, not for the psukim. Okay? He does it for the amusement of the guests, as Rashi. So he's reading psukim not for any proper reason. What happens? He brings ra, bad, into misfortune into this world. Why? When he does that, the Torah dresses up in sackcloth. When he comes to Hashem, he comes to Hashem and says, the children have treated me like a lute upon which scoffers play. They're using me as entertainment, says the Torah. Hashem says to the Torah, what do you want me to do? Beti, my daughter. What do you want them to do when they're eating and drinking? What else would you like them to do? If they cannot sing songs of religion and they cannot sing secular songs, what should they do? When there are banquets that are not religious occasions, Jewish people, it's not a Yom Tov, but it's some sort of party, someone's birthday, whatever it is. So what should they do? So, Amar lefanav. So the Torah says to Hashem, but im bali mikrahen, if they're students of scripture, yashku b'Torah unveim ktuvim. Then let them learn Torah and neviim ktuvim. Im bali mishnah, and if they know how to learn Mishnah, yashku b'Mishnah b'alachot v'agadot. They should learn Mishnah halacha and agadah. Im bali Talmud hen yashku b'alachot Pesach v'Pesach, b'alachot atzeret v'atzeret, b'alachot Chag v'Chag. They should learn the holiday, the halachot of the holidays coming up. So basically, they should be learning me and not using me as entertainment. If you're going to say the pasuk at the right time, at the appropriate time, okay, and a time that is correct, that people are listening, people want to hear it. It's a holy day. So then what? He brings tova in the world. The word spoken in due season, how good it is. So what we have to deal with right now is the fact that, especially from the Ashkenazic world, their songs are always, most of the time, verses from Tanakh. And they sing it. You play it on the radio and you hear entertainment. So is it okay or not? So we'll start off with a Magen Avraham. A Magen Avraham, he writes as follows: Ma shemishorerim b'mishteh or the Chag Kianitane. Not that they sing at parties or the Chag Kianitane like we say Hallel. B'chayotze b'zeh piyutim l'smichat hariyut lo kedinhu. They're doing it not according to halacha. The Torah Chogeret Sag Omeret Asuni Banecha Kimin Zemer. They made me into entertainment. Okay, so so how can they allow this? So he writes over here in the Sefer B'Shem and Mishcha. יש מה שמתירים לנגן בפה פסוקים דרך שבח ועוד השם יתברך. כן, תוצג אלה ועושים כאן דרך שחוק והיפול. He says, you know when you're allowed to sing songs with psukim in them? When you're doing it for Shevach V'Da'ah. You want to thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Well, if it's for thanking and praising Hashem, then you'll be allowed to. But if you're doing it stam, to enjoy nice music, nice words, enjoying that, then that would be a problem. Right? Says the Magen Avraham further, that in the shul, you're allowed to sing the words of the Torah, the words of the Tefillah. That you would be allowed to do because that's Shabbat V'Hoda'ah. That's you praising Hashem. On Shabbat, you should sing songs that are made specifically for the Shabbat table, says the Magen Avraham. And V'yesh Matim B'derech Shavoda'ah L'Hashem Yitbarach. Like we said before, if it's for Hashem Yitbarach, if you're doing to praise HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you can even say if it's done for Chizuk, give a person, a boost, and that will help him as well, then that would be permissible. Okay? Let me just see over here. There's whether the hand of Chacham Hashem Ishtuki paid the Rakan. And then Mutter Lemmer as a Psukim, maybe you can Shabbat well for Hashem Shkol. It's a moving Gemara who back requires some of their Schek Mizno. Yeah. Okay, right. Okay. Mutter Lenagin. It's mutter to sing if it's not done. It's not done in entertainment and lightheadedness. But okay, so Rabbatai, there you have it. That's how you listen to these songs. If it's done for Shabbat V'Hoda'ah, otherwise, seems to be it would be a problem of turning the Torah, turning the Tanakh into a form of entertainment. Hasbi shalom. Okay, this is it for this week. B'ezrat Hashem, we will continue from here next week. Toda rabah lekulam.